there was, you know, this opportunity to do something in Riverside, and it's, you know, impossible not to think about just the ever widening disparity of wealth in the country. And Riverside is, you know, the sort of ground zero of the housing crisis, so I've heard it said, in California. So the racket sport became
This metaphor.
it became not just any racket sport.
Oh, it became squash.
Right.
Right. Which, because it's an important for the let rule in squash. But it's also, squash has this, it stands in for maybe the 1%, which that 99.1% language showed up later.
Yeah.
So we
enough,
actually talked about squash as this elite sport. So on one hand, you can see squash as functioning within the show as the elite, and maybe the houses in the tableaus being the situation or the scenery or the locations. I guess it's scenery, maybe not the right word. Locations, and then the people are people, because it is happening to people. I think that's perhaps the greatest aspect missing from the dialogue and the popular representation of the crisis, is the fact that there are real people experiencing this and in this relationship with banks, because they accepted these loans that perhaps the banks at one point in time were supposed to be the gatekeepers to prevent loans going to people who could not afford them or did not have income, or perhaps did not know that the economy was about to shrink and their jobs prospects were about to evaporate.
I wouldn't lean too heavily on the foreclosure crisis. I mean, I think that the foreclosure crisis is the specific iteration that we look at in the show. It's just, I mean, there's just a process that you go through where you start off with something and it's like, oh, let's do this and that and da-da-da-da-da, and then, you know, it just kind of has an organic process.
Right. And what we experienced is we were very, for example, we wanted to shoot these houses for the tableau pieces, and we were very concerned about having permission to be on foreclosed properties like this one. And actually, this is one of the properties we shot out, and this is the one property, no, this is one of the two properties that we had permission for.
Yeah.
And then we started shooting on other properties that were just simply vacant and had paperwork in the window, like this one doesn't anymore.
I don't think this one ever had paperwork.
Tape marks.
It's got the lock on the door.
There's lots.
Anyway, so we were really concerned about the legal issues of just setting up and doing shoots, and it really turned out not to be. So what we perceived as this great problem, this challenge, and maybe we were setting ourselves up for this kind of, what are you doing here? I'm going to call the cops if you guys don't leave kind of situation.
It wasn't
was not
a problem. Yeah.
Right. And so similarly, we set out with the wisdom of crowds piece to try and get people from the Riverside community to participate, and you know, people who are in foreclosure or have some relationship with foreclosure. And I think in the end we actually got that, although you might characterize the participants as being more members of the UC Riverside community.
I
think the piece lives and breathes just as well as we had any intention.
I like what you're saying about, I like how you're talking about the wisdom of crowds as being, again, not something that we thought could be a problem, but which didn't turn into a problem, which is actually because, it's again, it's just like, what I think the bottom line is that, like I said, the specificity of the foreclosure crisis and the community is, let me put it this way, the show is about bigger issues, right? and then the foreclosure crisis in Riverside. So to whatever extent the specificity of the foreclosure crisis in Riverside does or does not show up in the show, you know, isn't really an issue, because it's, you know, it's, we really wanted to look at, you know, what's really underlying the disparity of wealth and these, you know, this sort of problem that you know, we really wanted to look at what was underlying what the situation that people are become so, you know, angry.
I think that maybe Occupy is the popular or political response to some of the issues that we're dealing with. And actually, I think there's something interesting to consider about the Occupy movement. Perhaps one of the criticisms of the Occupy movement is the lack of clear message or clear goals. But I also think that that's something to pay attention to, in that the people involved in Occupy all have their own articulation of what's wrong. They all have their own experience of America as it stands right now, with the sort of notions of competition and this winner-take-all, and maybe some erosion of traditional values, just like we experienced here, where we drove up, and here's the neighbor walks over and says, "Hi, what are you guys doing?"
Yeah.
You know, not threatening.
Just like
we I live found. Here, you know, this is the first
time that's happened to us, actually.
In
today,
sort of like showing up
we get a neighbor,
houses.
Actually,
this is the first neighbor.
Buying it, or?
They said, "Oh, did you guys buy it? You know, hey, great, good for you." It's like, no, we're just shooting a video, and so she gets this puzzled look on her face, like, "Well, what does that mean?" And we quickly explained the nature of the show and why we're here, and that we actually had spoken with the property owner, and she gave us permission to be here.
I think that
we think that's pretty. We think that is terrific.
Yeah.
We think that's something we'd like to encourage. Where it's like, hey, look, we're in this together. What are you doing here? Let's talk. Let's have a quick exchange, as opposed to the you know, drive your Hummer into the garage, close the door.
I don't care what's happening.
I don't care what's happening outside of my little cocoon.
Right.
Culture that maybe our show is meant to question.
Yeah, let's look at the mindset that underlies, because ultimately this is a democratic country. People do vote, you know, people do have power. And I think a really important question is, where were the 99%? Where was Occupy in, say, the 90s? Where were the huge masses of people saying, "Oh, this just doesn't work, this is broken, something has to change"? Well, they weren't there because things were going well, and everyone was, you know, trying to get a little piece, there's something, you know? So, I think, you know, it's that, you know, why that is what we want to look at. And yeah, we're going to look at it with humor, because God, what's the thing where Freud says, as soon as you start to try to deconstruct a joke, it's not funny anymore. So I'm kind of in this zone of like, I don't want to talk about humor.
Right.